So I'm just going to read the abstract here. I'm not going to quote the paper at length, but we show that laws mandating the use of child car safety seats significantly reduce birth rates, as many cars cannot fit 3 child seats in the back seat. Women with 2 children younger than their state's age mandate have a lower annual birth probability of 0.73 percentage points. This effect is limited to third childbirth, so there's a real cutoff. Like if you are in a sedan, you have room for the driver, the adult passenger, and 2 child's car seats in the back, and no more. It is very, very difficult to fit a third car seat in most cars. Households with access to a car and households with male present where both front seats are likely to be occupied. We estimate that these laws prevented 57 children's car crashes fatalities in 2017, which is great. 57 kids were saved because they were in their car seats. But they prevented 8,000 births that year and 145,000 births since 1980.
What's the scope of the study? Like in what geographic location? Is it just talking about the states?
I think the States.
Okay.
I think probably the United States.
Okay.
I haven't reviewed it in depth, but it's a compelling argument.
Yes, I get
and something that I think is immediately self-evident to a lot of people. I mean, if you are driving a sedan, you're a young family, you just got married, you probably have the same sedan like you've been driving since you were in high school.
Yeah.
There's no need to buy a new car.
Right.
But then you start thinking, let's have a family. Let's have a kid. Let's have another kid. And then you stop for a second and you're like, wait a minute. If we have one more kid, the entire physical structure of our life is dependent on us driving from point A to point B. And so if we want another child, we need a new car. And then you go and look how expensive a new car is, and your jaw drops and you're just like, can we afford this? Because babies are already expensive, hospital bills and all that kind of stuff. But to add on top of that, car payments that are approaching $1,000 a month if you want a new car, and still probably several $100s a month for a used car, plus the maintenance burden of that, it's astounding.
Amazing. This is obviously an anti-Catholic conspiracy.
And like you're pointing out, it's not the study focuses on car seats, but this can be extrapolated to just the car itself and its different sizes. I mean, we were talking, or before this, we're planning the podcast about you can go from a sedan to a minivan. There really isn't station wagons anymore, and then you have to go from a minivan to a CAV. A Catholic assault vehicle. Those big 12-seaters, white vans. And just think about it. Maybe if there was a great acceptance of Paul VI's teaching on contraception by all Catholics in the States, and they just start having a lot more kids, and they all get these cars. Do church parking lots have enough space to be able to fit all of these? And now all the additional parking requirements that are going to be mandated to have CAVs. And I don't know if they're actually called, but...
You see immediately that the church's teaching concerning contraception is not just some moralistic, disruption of our sexual desire, but in fact always implies a world that the church views as just and proper. And right here, what's really just obvious about this thought is that the world that adherence to the church's teaching implies is not a world of the automobile. And I've said this in different podcasts. I'm not going to repeat it again, but it's been unfortunate that by framing contraception as primarily just a moral issue, a sort of do or do not, right or wrong issue, that its radical critique of a technocratic paradigm was left underdeveloped, let's say it like that, within the especially 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Because the obvious question is, if it is, or the obvious implication is that if it is proper to human flourishing, that the sexual act is open to life whenever it is performed, then what we have is a world, the structures of which make natural happiness seem unhappy, or at least unnaturally difficult to attain. And you see this within the recommendations that promoters of contraception give to countries that are slow on the uptake of contraceptions, this most especially in Africa. I've discussed this before with Eric Brandy, and anyone can go ahead and look that podcast in detail, but the one of the things that's mentioned to help people use contraception when they're otherwise resistant to it is urbanization. And this comes with the use of the automobile. Like the kind of urbanization they need really is, there's no other form at this point. And so the expansion of these machines, it goes right back to what Ivan Illich sort of began this. It's you make normal life only accessible through higher amounts of capital. Mm-hmm. And what this does is it loosens people from their embedded local communities in which their work and their community belong within a walkable structure. You disembed them from that structure and you free them up to work in corporations. Now, I don't know who has the master plan here, and I'm not saying there's someone out there who intends all this outside of just the thing in front of them, the 10, what my dad used to call it, the 10-yard target as opposed to the 500-yard target. But the net effect is that we are busy creating a world in which the truth of the faith seems increasingly untenable for normal life. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, is what is at stake. And this is why I just cannot stand the idea that Catholicism is anything less than a radical social revolution at this point. Because it never just suggests, hey, we've got a nifty list of moral behaviors you should adopt. It suggests at every point that these behaviors only make sense within a world in which power is distributed, in which property is distributed, in which communities are locally present to each other and embedded, in which power is for the weak. And if we do not have these structures in place, this life becomes a sort of riot against a exterior violence. Mm-hmm. And so all of which is to say, there's something quite anti-Catholic about cars. And if
hey, thanks so much for watching that clip. If you want more of this content, then do all the liberal things, like it, subscribe it. We got to play the game. Help us play.